Welcome, football fans, to a Tuesday episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. This is your host, Kevin Smith, and today's topic is one that I think will resonate with an awful lot of people listening. We're going to talk about youth sports, and in particular, what the heck is wrong with them? What has gone wrong with youth sports? It feels as though the entire enterprise has gone off the rails. And why is that? How has it gone from something that, where they're probably, when people like myself, Generation Xers, were growing up, there was very little parental involvement, structure, interest, etc., to something that is now so overblown and overdone and over-involved that we've reached a level of unhealthiness. So how did that happen? What has happened? What's wrong? And I come to this topic because this past weekend, I attended my son's final AAU basketball tournament of the season. He has been playing AAU basketball with a group for 3 years now. We feel very fortunate that we're part of a program run by a tremendous individual, Tori Cavalieri, former star basketball player at Atlantic City High School, played professionally in Europe, and is really in it for all the right reasons. I mean, you really couldn't get your kid around a better person who runs a program with better intentions. But unfortunately, that appears to be the exception and not the rule these days. And just this past weekend, we ended our AAU season by playing in a big tournament in central Pennsylvania. And I mean, I won't go into all the details of the tournament, but just some of the lowlights. There was a fight between parents that caused the cancellation of a game. There was an ejection of a coach that caused a long delay in another game. There was a team, actually the team my son's team lost to, that was ultimately disqualified from the tournament for using ineligible players. It was a 12U tournament, meaning everybody on your team had to be 12 years old or younger, and they were using kids who were older than 12 years old. In pregame, when we were watching a couple of their kids jump up and grab the rim as supposed 12-year-olds, right away we were like, okay, that doesn't look right. Yeah, a 12-year-old body, a kid who is barely 5 feet tall should not be able to jump up and grab the rim. And that didn't look right. I mean, there just were one indication after another. From the money grab of the promoters who were charging $50 a person to spectate for the weekend. The money grab, the coaching, the cheating, the fact that they had so many games going on. They had 29 courts, and all of those courts were in use at once. So you had to have referees to fill all of those games, and obviously you didn't have enough qualified referees. So now teams are paying these huge entry fees and big travel fees and staying in hotels, and you can't get quality refereeing. It was a microcosm of youth sports gone wrong. And this is AAU basketball, but we see similar things all across the sporting spectrum. You see it in soccer, you see it in lacrosse, in baseball, etc. Travel sports has become a mini economy on one hand, but on the other hand, it's really kind of ruining the youth sports experience. So what's gone wrong? I mean, let's go through sort of a top 5 list of the things that really are sort of the most glaring problems with youth sports today. And I'll start with the overemphasis on winning. The idea of winning at all costs, so that you're going to enter 13 and 14-year-olds into a 12U tournament, has so distorted the meaning of youth sports to the point where you actually have to remind yourself, like, winning is not the important thing right now. I mean, these kids are, in my son's instance, they're 12. I mean, you had kids as young as 10 participating in the tournament that we were just at, 10 U teams. Winning when you're 10 years old, 11 years old, even 12 years old is absolutely not the thing that should be emphasized. It is player development. You should be encouraging kids, one, to enjoy whatever sport it is so that they'll want to continue participating, and two, developing them so that as they progress throughout their athletic career and get further into middle school and then potentially into high school, that they will learn the skills necessary to become better players. But unfortunately, the adults, and this is adult driven, have decided that having a trophy or having a medal or being able to post some sort of championship thing on your social media is far more important. And so the emphasis on winning has become absurd. The division of communities now into these various travel teams whereby the best kids are siphoned off and no longer play for their town, but play for a regional travel team, has now created a trickle-down effect whereby local programs suffer so that kids who might not be elite players are suffering because they're not getting the coaching, they're not getting the ability to be on teams that play in competitive environments against other equally talented teams. Instead, you're getting almost like a caste system. The A travel team, the B travel team, the C travel team. The fact that you have a C travel team is crazy. Because each of these teams come with fees and come with responsibilities and burdens on parents, etc. Nobody's saying that winning is not important. And you certainly want to develop the skills that will allow your kids to be successful from a team perspective. But if you are compromising skill development in favor of assembling these all-star teams simply designed to win, you're not doing your kids a service in the end. Now, a second big problem is way too much parental involvement. Again, if I go back to like when I was a kid, my dad coached me in baseball for like 2 years. But it's interesting because he coached the 16, 17, 18-year-old team in town. And he coached that team whether I was on it or not. When I was playing Little League ball as an 11-year-old, he was coaching the 16 to 18-year-old team. He was a good coach. He knew the game. He had played in college. He coached the highest level in our community. And when I got up to that level, he coached me. But he didn't follow me through every single level the way that you see in so many sports now. There's just this notion that all these various teams will be coached by the dads of either the best kids or the dads of mediocre kids whose parents want them to be guaranteed spots in lineups on so-called elite teams. The daddy ball effect. You coach your kid so that your kid can benefit. And many times that's at the expense of other kids who are probably better. That existed a little bit when I was growing up, and probably when many people listening are growing up. I mean, that's always been a thing, but never to the point that it is now. Where we are now is that is now the rule. This notion that there's a father guiding his kid through the process in order for his kid to benefit. The need to control your son's experience so that kid gets everything that you think he deserves has really created a lot of problems. And one of the problems is the problem of unrealistic expectations. In my 14 years as a head football coach at the high school level, I would say the biggest issue I ran into was unrealistic expectations of parents. The biggest problems I had, they weren't discipline problems. They weren't problems with our administration. They were problems with parents whose expectations for their own kids were too far beyond their kids' ability. They didn't have the ability to judge how good their kid was. And when we didn't play their kid in the position they thought he should be in, or start him, or give him as many carries, as many rushes as they believed he deserved, then suddenly we were the problem. And that's largely an issue born out of parents controlling their kids' experience all through the youth levels, and then having to hand it over to somebody else when they get to high school. And the letting go, the not being able to control the situation anymore for a lot of parents is untenable. They can't handle it. They can't manage it. And that has a massive effect upon their kids, because the pressure they put on their kids to succeed because of these grandiose dreams of their kid getting a college scholarship, being recruited, etc. It burdens these kids psychologically, which is something we'll get to in a minute. The pressure that's being put on kids by parents these days is absurd. One of the reasons for that pressure is money. The amount of money, which is a third problem, that is being spent at the youth sport level these days is mind-boggling. If you traveled to the basketball tournament that my son was in this weekend, you probably spent hundreds of dollars. You probably stayed overnight in a hotel for 2 nights, a couple $100 a night. You paid a $50 admission fee to get in to watch. You spent money on food. If you were there with your family, you're easily talking about $1,000 weekend just to watch your kid play in a basketball tournament. If you are on that team to begin with, you probably paid an entry fee that could range up into the thousands of dollars. I know that there are lacrosse programs in our area that charge $3,000 to be a part of their travel lacrosse program for the season. Some of the basketball is a little bit lower, but some of the entry fee or the fees for basketball get up into the $1,000 range. Travel baseball is significantly more expensive. And then you have the parents shelling out all the money so that their kids can have the gear and the equipment. You watch these baseball players walk in with their $100 bags that have, 3 bats in them, each one that costs $300, something along those lines. Lacrosse, similar story. In basketball, it's the sneakers and it's the bag and it's all the accessories that come with it. And then you have the private training that you pay for. I mean, there's so much private training out there for every conceivable thing. In lacrosse, you can hire a face-off coach who will charge you $80 an hour just to teach your son how to face off, or a goalie coach. In basketball, any number of personal trainers, big man trainers, trainers for point guards, generic trainers that will teach your son the game. Football, you have quarterback coaches and kicking coaches. You have big man camps. I mean, the business of training players in these sports is mind-boggling. I don't know. Maybe I should get in on it. I just feel like, my gosh, I got 31 years of coaching experience. Why don't I get in on it? I've never done it. I've been too busy, I think, actually coaching and doing things like this. But still, there is a market, an economy of specialization. And at the end of the day, what's it all add up to? It adds up to this. Parents feel pressured to have their kids succeed at a high level because they have put so much into it. They've put so much out. By the time your kid graduates high school, you have probably spent, conservatively, tens of thousands of dollars on their athletic development. And if they don't get a college scholarship or if they don't get recruited, you're angry. Oftentimes you blame the coach or you look for somebody to blame. A fourth issue is specialization. Increasingly, kids are feeling pressured to specialize in one sport. That if you're a baseball player, you play baseball in the spring, but then you'll be pressured to play it in the summer too, whether it's on your local team or a travel team. But now fall leagues exist as well. So if you want to play, let's say, football or soccer in the fall, it may conflict with the fall league from your travel baseball team. Well, if you don't play on that fall team, you may lose your spot. So when the next spring rolls around, somebody else has taken your spot on that team. The risk of playing another sport may jeopardize your standing in whatever sport you are, quote unquote, specializing in. So now you are saying the 3-sport athlete, which was very common back in the day, is gone the way of the dodo bird, man. That thing is just about dead and gone. That's pretty much extinct. 2-sport athletes, still fairly common, but increasingly we're seeing 1-sport athletes. And the irony is this. So many parents believe that in order to get recruited for college, you need to specialize. You need to play on these travel teams like year round or 3 out of the 4 seasons. But ironically, so many coaches talk about the value that they put in multiple sport athletes. So many college recruiters. When I would get college recruiters coming into Ocean City High School to talk about our players, one of the first questions they almost always asked was, what else does he play? Because they want to know a couple of things. One, are you competing year round? They want you to compete. They want you to be in competitive environments. If you're a football player in the spring, they want you to play lacrosse. They want you to play baseball. They want you to run track, as opposed to just lifting on your own and doing stuff with a personal trainer. You're not in competitive environments when you do those things. And learning how to compete is integral to the success in any sport. And 2, they want you to be coached by other coaches, to hear different voices, to learn how to adapt to different coaching styles, to be challenged in unique ways. If all you have is your club coach or your high school coach, and then your trainer telling you how great you're doing for $100 an hour, you're not learning to handle the challenges, the adversity, the unique approach that other coaches may present you. And I think all of this culminates in a 5th problem, a 5th what's wrong with youth sports. And that is the deterioration of the mental health of young kids because of the pressure that's being placed upon them to succeed at an early age. If you had been sitting at this AAU tournament, you would have said to yourself, my gosh, the pressure on these kids, the screaming from the parents, the coaches, the intensity of the environment. You may be listening and saying, well, hey, Coach Smith, why do you do it with your son then? If you're so critical of the process, why do you do it? And trust me, we've talked a lot with our son about trying to keep this into perspective, how to handle this type of adversity, how to handle these environments. Fortunately, he's with a coach who we trust with our son's life. And we trust Coach Cavalieri as much as I could possibly trust another human being who's not a family member. And we are aware. We try to be very aware of the environments that we're putting him in. But because if you're not, then you run the risk of your kid having breakdowns. So many of these kids withdraw from sports because they can't handle the pressure. The mental stress and strain is so great that at 12 and 13 years old, they're quitting because they just can't take it. We've gone from the absentee parent. I grew up with an awful lot of parents who just never showed up. You rode your bike to the game. You played in front of a sparse crowd. A lot of kids' parents weren't even there. You rode your bike home. And when your dad got home from work, he asked you how you did, and you told him. And he said, great. And then he went and had a beer. We've gone from that to parents spending tens of thousands of dollars and urging their kids to specialize in sports and pushing them into competitive environments that they may not be mentally ready to handle, and making them feel like if they don't succeed, they've let their family down. They've wasted their father's money. It's crazy. As a result, participation in youth sports is down. Depending on what numbers you read, anywhere from 12 to about 18% from where it was 20 years ago. In the early 2000s, slightly more than 50% of kids in America were playing youth sports. Today, that number's in the high 30s. And yeah, there's competition for their entertainment, their attention, all those video games, all the devices. You can sit on your device all day. For a lot of kids, sitting on your device all day is far more appealing than being thrown into a competitive environment where the adults are yelling at you and the other kids are uber competitive and you just don't feel mentally as though you can handle it. And maybe our kids are softer. Maybe our kids are softer than they were back in the day, as people like to say. But I always say this because I see it. I see it. I shouldn't even say maybe. In many respects, yes, kids are weaker than they once were. But my follow-up question to a statement like that is always this: who is teaching them? Who is shaping them? Who has made them that way? For me, it falls back on the adults. If you ask me to summarize in one word the question of what's wrong with youth sports, my answer would be adults. It's the adults. Hopefully, we'll do better. And we'll realize that what this is all about should be the development of young athletes playing a sport that they love and the enjoyment of it. And if it's not about development and enjoyment, then we really need to rethink what we're doing. Okay, that is our Tuesday show. Tomorrow, we're actually flipping our Whiteboard Wednesday and our State of the Franchise. Usually we do our coaching show on Wednesday, and we do our State of the Franchise show on Thursday, but just the scheduling, the logistics of the scheduling this week, we got to flip those two. So tomorrow we'll do State of the Franchise. FFSN's Brian Anthony Davis, my partner in crime on the Here We Go Steelers show, is coming on to do a profile on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian also covers the Jaguars, and so he's going to profile the Jaguars with me. And then Thursday, I'm going to have Coach Zach Davis on, longtime football coach and host of a podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network. And we're going to talk about football culture and development. So join me for those shows. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Don't yell at your kid if he's not great at sports, man. Let him enjoy it. Take care.